Hey everybody, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Ryan.
And this week we're reviewing Crimson Tide. Coming up next! Alright, for anyone who doesn't know, Crimson Tide is a 1995 movie directed by Tony Scott and ghostwritten by Quentin Tarantino. And it is about a nuclear submarine, and there's a mutiny. You got Gene Hackman, you got Denzel Washington. One of them wants to end the world, the other one doesn't. And they're going to go to blows because of it. Ryan, we've been friends for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I have talked to you about Crimson Tide so much. In fact, every time I have a new TV, I have a tradition of watching Crimson Tide. and I did invite you over to watch it. We couldn't make that happen, but we made this review happen. I got to ask you, how do you feel about Crimson Tide?
Well, Gabe, I think it's safe to say I don't think that Crimson Tide is a good movie. I think that it is a great movie.
That was very dangerous. That was very dangerous.
I know,
sir.
I was on the hot seat for a second. This is a fantastic movie. I just think that this is a film that it's tense, it's action-packed, not in the ways that you'd expect either. It's like, it's suspenseful in a way that it's all about the characters.
Yeah.
And that's like, the more that I've studied film, the more I've realized like it's really the human connection that like brings us to these stories, because you can make things look shiny and stuff like that, which we'll get into later because this is directed by Tony Scott, rest in peace, of course, film legend. Yeah. But it's really that human connection, and you really get that from these two incredible talents, Gene Hackman and Denzel.
Yeah, this is a very testosterone movie. It is a bunch of men in a metal box, and that metal box has the ability to shoot a nuclear missile at Russia. And they get what appears to be a message saying, shoot a missile at Russia, and then they get like half of a message that's like, wait, and then they lose power. And they don't know. Were they supposed to send the missile? Are they not supposed to send the missile? And Gene Hackman, who is fantastic, and just like Enemy of the State, he's sweating profusely. I don't know what it was about late career Gene Hackman besides the Royal Tenenbaums, but he's melting in every movie. So it's him and James Gandolfini before he was Tony Soprano, and they're just losing their mind. And then Denzel's like, we're not going to let this happen. And it's just men arguing. And men would much rather almost shoot a nuke at Russia than go to therapy. That was my takeaway from it. Ryan, do you want to break down, let's just start with Gene Hackman's performance.
Yeah.
This was 95, so he had just gotten his Oscar for Unforgiven. How do you think he does in this movie?
I think he's great. I really think this stacks up well with some of his better performances. It's not my personal favorite, but he's definitely a standout. One thing that's interesting, too, is that with Gene Hackman, we see this like a lot more now with the idea of like these older grizzled characters who have this complex nature to them. But if you go back and look at Gene Hackman's filmography, Unforgiven, this, Enemy at the State, all these like great movies, you realize that he was doing that like 30 years ago. This idea of a character who, he's kind of like Eastwood in that way, where they played these tough characters. Of course, Clint Eastwood first got big with the No Name trilogy and Dirty Harry. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Gene Hackman won his first Oscar for French Connection. These guys who, like, kind of, they're foul-mouthed, or there's really edgy characters, because late 60s to early 70s is a very dark period for America specifically. And so you go back, and then you see them in the 90s almost counter that, where they're like, yeah, I'm still playing a version of that character, but I'm way more flawed this time, and the film is, like, fully acknowledging that a lot of my decisions are just flat out wrong. And Denzel's kind of like, one thing that's interesting too, I want to say The Ringer brought this up, so I'm going to steal a little bit from them. But they brought up that you don't really see a lot of these movies anymore where you have this legendary performer like a Gene Hackman passing the baton onto a younger star like Denzel Washington. I think one of the big ones is The Color of Money with Newman and Tom Cruise.
A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise.
Yeah, so it's like you really... You feel that shift going from like Denzel representing the next generation, trying to sort of correct the errors of the last person.
Absolutely. And then you've got Denzel in this movie, and this is kind of the beginning of movie star Denzel Washington. This is, after Malcolm X, and I believe it's Blue Suede Shoes. I think that's the name of it.
Or Mo Better Blues.
Mo Better Blues. Thank you. So you're kind of getting that evolution from like these indie movies that have a lot of meaning behind them, and now he's becoming the Denzel who's gonna do Man on Fire, and he's gonna do The Equalizer, and it's going to be awesome. And he is fantastic in this movie as Captain Ramsey, who's this like fastidious, very detail oriented. He's the XO, so it's like the first mate essentially, and both of them have to concur on whether or not to shoot this nuclear missile, and he doesn't, and it's declared a mutiny, and it's fantastic. But the reason this movie works, in my opinion, is Tony Scott's directing. The first shot of this movie is just a list, and it says, the three most powerful men on earth: the President of the United States of America, the President of Russia, the captain of a United States nuclear submarine. And then Hans Zimmer's score kicks in, and your eyes just open up all the way, and you're like, I am ready for whatever this movie is going to be. And it works because Tony Scott is just the master of the propulsive movie. 2008, he released Unstoppable, one of my favorites also, with Denzel Washington. You've got a runaway train. This movie is the personification of a runaway train, where it's just, it starts, and then it doesn't stop until the end. And you're like, oh, the world might end because these men are idiots. And it's just simply incredible. How do you think Tony Scott does in directing this movie?
I think he's firing on all cylinders in this film. I think that Tony Scott's someone who I feel like now he's gotten a lot more respect. I think more so than back when he was actually releasing stuff, because I think that people have started to note like his visual style has really sort of, the influence has been seen in a lot of stuff. Like, I know a lot of people joke about him, but Michael Bay is a very successful filmmaker, and every single Michael Bay movie is owed to Tony Scott, right from Top Gun to True Romance, just from the Dutch angles, or just like the grainy look that he has. Man on Fire is one of my personal favorites, again with Denzel. And I think with this film too, it's one thing I liked about the style and the story is that it's great. The claustrophobia you get from the submarine in particular, it's like, if they said it anywhere else, like, I don't know if it would have worked, because you really get, not only you get plenty of the sweaties in this, but also like you really get the tense nature of it, and also the fact that there's literally this world-ending event happening, and it really could just all go like that because all these guys just can't cooperate.
Get along.
It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's just this miscommunication on all their parts, and it's a shame because like that's so realistic that our miscommunication and misunderstanding of each other could lead to our demise. So it's very realistic in that
One
sense.
thing that's really interesting, 2 weeks ago, Roman and Nick reviewed Napoleon, and there was this discussion on, did Ridley Scott know the movie he wanted to make? Like, was he trying to make a war movie? Was he trying to make a Napoleon Josephine movie? And, you know, we don't quite know. Tony Scott knew what he wanted to make with this movie, which is a very tense movie with great set pieces. And that's why he brought in Quentin Tarantino, who, yes, writes some very Tarantino dialogue about the Silver Surfer, stuff like that. But to write these really incredible set pieces. There's one where the submarine is flooding, and there's a bunch of men who are just drowning to death, and there's blood everywhere. And Denzel Washington has to decide, do I go down there and try and save them and maybe drown myself, or do I seal the door and stop the submarine from drowning? And it's like, it's a big ethical quandary, but Hans Zimmer is just pitching 100 with an incredible score as it's going dun 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 dun, and he's trying to wonder, like, should he save these people? And it's incredible. We've got to go soon. I don't want to keep belaboring people with Crimson Tide. Really quick, the one thing I will say, the submarine in the movie is named the USS Alabama. That is why the movie is called Crimson Tide, for people who didn't know. But what I got to know is, what is your score for Crimson Tide? Be careful saying this. I will throw popcorn at you if it's not the right answer.
Well, we don't do half scores, right?
No half scores.
Okay. I think maybe because like there's some stuff I remember the first time I saw it, I think I had some minor nitpicks. So just to be safe, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
But if I rewatch it soon, it could go up there. But as of now, I'm comfortable with a 9.
All right, Ryan, I understand why you're giving it a 9. I'm pretty biased. I'm going to give this movie a 10 out of 10. I think it is the perfect action movie. I want to make it very clear, 10 out of 10. I love Denzel Washington. He's my celebrity crush and my favorite actor. Gene Hackman, fantastic. The supporting cast, incredible. Tony Scott, a master. And we don't make movies like this anymore, but I really wish we did. And I am formally offering anyone in Hollywood who's watching, I will direct the Crimson Tide remake. So hit me up, Michael Bay. That's all I'm saying. I would also be willing to do Ambulance 2, and you could help me with it, because that movie is also, that's great. That's all I have, and trying to get myself a job. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day.